Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of In-Depth Angling. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to shoot docks to catch more crappie this year. Good technique to be using throughout the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter, year-round. Catches fish really well in Lake of the Ozarks and anywhere that there are a lot of docks, floating docks, as well as docks that have piers on them. And it's some of the best fishing that you can have on the entire lake at times, as they ambush the bait as it's coming through those shaded areas and they hang tight to that structure and cover that they provide. So we're gonna go out and show you guys how to catch those fish real quick and how the technique goes. So when I'm looking for a dock to go fish for these crappie, I'm going after the docks that have got a lot of structure around them other than just the dock itself. Anytime you have a drop off, a point, or some sort of brush pile that's near it, you're gonna make those docks more attractive to crappie as they use those kind of areas anyway. Just having a dock on top of it is gonna increase the usage out of that spot for those crappie because it just gives them more cover. Wave breaks like this one here attached to this dock are good areas to start out with as well, because they usually extend out over a deeper area and have a bigger area of depth change underneath them. They stick out into the channel quite a way, so any crappie that are out here in the main channel will pull up over to this as their first break of shade and sit on this and wait for bait fish to come rolling around. It also helps to have some of the concrete blocks and some of the cables that are suspending down over the underneath this wave break that anchor it to the bottom, and that helps give the crappie a little bit of an ambush point as well for those bait fish to come in and around. So this is a really good high percentage spot. Have a rod and reel set up like this one here. It's a Lew's Wally Marshall speed shooter. It's made for dock shooting. It's got a pretty good tip and action for the rod to catapult those jigs up way underneath the dock where those crappie like to hide out. But I want to get about an arm's length out and just be able to swing that jig right back to me and grab it. You want to grab the head of it, just like I have right here. And you're going to want to keep that jig pointed away. You don't want to grab back here where the hook is at. You don't want to grab anywhere around that point. You're just going to grab the ball head of the jig, which is right up here by your line tie. You're going to point that down kind of like a 90-degree angle away from you, and you're going to load that rod up, and that is going to be what drives that jig and shoots it up underneath that dock. After you get that part down, you're going to want to grab the line right here, right by the seat of the reel. You're going to pull that all the way down tight, grab your jig, flip it around, load it up, get your line parallel with the surface of the water. I don't want my line going like this or like this. It's going to shoot where you're pointing it at. So I'm going to get that line parallel to the water surface, and then I'm going to line up right where I want to underneath the dock slip, and I'll fire that thing in there. Just like that. Just like that. Now I usually let that thing fall down to the depth that I want to start fishing at. The crappie have been kind of a little bit deeper lately, so let that fall down a little bit. There's a hit right there. There's one right there on it. Black crappie. That right there is how you shoot docks for crappie. It's not much to the technique besides getting the grip down and being able to aim that thing accurately. There's a nice black crappie right there out of the Lake of the Ozarks. This thing's probably close to 10 inches or so. It'd be a keeper. I'm not going to keep fish here tonight, but that is a nice size one if I was going to take some home to eat. Thick slabs on that guy. I'm going to get him back in. Off she goes. So after I've gotten that fish in, I want to make sure my jig's pulled up all the way on there. I'm going to head again, get it about arm's length out, swing it right back to me to where I can grab that. Grab just the head of the jig, tilt it away from my body, load that up, make sure my rod is parallel with the line on the surface of the water, and make sure you're aiming that thing right where you want it to go. And then you're going to want to release from your hand that's holding the jig just before you let go of the line, because you want this rod to still have that force right there trying to shoot that jig forward, and then you're going to be letting go of this one. And how you let go is really simple. It's just pull your finger straight out, just kind of like you're reverse pulling a trigger. This is really easy to do while you're sitting down in a kayak like this, like I'm doing here today. You can do this as well by crouching down or kneeling in a bass boat, john boat, something of like that you would normally fish out of with a bigger style rig. But this is super easy to do because you're low to the water in a kayak. You kind of shoot at different angles too. If you're at a kind of an awkward angle, you can shoot it from the side. Just got to make sure your line's parallel to the water and that you're aiming that thing right where you want it to go. Just got to make sure your line's parallel to the water and that you're aiming that thing right where you want it to go. I want to show you guys quickly what would happen if you have your timing messed up real quick. If I'm taking this out and I'm going to let go of my finger on my trigger here too late, what that's going to do is it's going to swing that rod, or that jig rather, up and around like this, and it's not going to go as far. Or it'll kind of start to shoot straight up in the air, kind of like that. So if you're late on letting go of the trigger finger on your, if you're right-handed, it's going to be your right index finger in most cases, then it's going to shoot upwards. It'll a lot of times do this. If you let go of your trigger finger too soon, it'll do this, and that jig's not going to go anywhere. It'll either stay right there with you, or it's going to go right and it's going to shoot directly back into the water. So that'll kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how your timing is. If it's off, if you're seeing your jig go up, you know that you're releasing too late. If you see your jig not going very far and shooting straight down to the water, you're likely releasing too early on your trigger finger. And if you're releasing this thing and it's at the wrong angle, even, it'll do the same kind of thing. Like if I'm shooting too far down and my line's like aimed down a little bit too much, it'll do this. It'll nosedive and it'll die really quick. It'll either, if you're lucky, it'll skip like it did right there, or it'll shoot straight into the water. Or if you have it angled up too high, it's going to shoot really high. And you want to keep your jig parallel and low to the water as possible. That way you're shooting that thing and it's clearing underneath the different bracing and in between the dock floats on these docks, so you can get back in a long ways. Another really good area to shoot up underneath docks are swim platforms, because they have really dark, dense shade underneath them. They're further away from the wells, so there's more shade and area for the crappie to be hanging out underneath. And this is also an area that a lot of people put their brush piles around. And like these ropes here that I have looking at right here on the side of the dock here, I've got some brush and some other structure that's hanging off the side of the dock here that give crappie more structure to be around in. So to shoot up underneath of here, it's the same exact thing, but you can shoot a lot further underneath as opposed to just off of a wave breaker on the side of a dock well into a slip. You can get that thing all the way back up underneath these and really fish back in those areas that are otherwise unaccessible to go and fish, and get you those hard to reach crappie that are way up underneath these docks that hold so tight to cover. As you're starting to learn this technique, it also helps to be able to practice on some of these bigger holes first and start working your way towards more smaller, more complicated shots. These are going to be more forgiving if you're a little bit off. It also helps you get some practice, and you can do this in practice with like a cardboard box laid down on the ground at home, in your living room or wherever, in a garage, and you can shoot that thing in there and you'll kind of get an idea of where your shots need to be lining up relative to how far back you are, how much power you need to have in your rod. You don't want to overload your rod. It's going to make it a lot more likely to shoot more upwards the more loaded up you get. So like if I am reeled up really high up here and I go to grab this and I start shooting from way out here, it's going to be way more likely that I'm going to try to shoot this thing and it's going to shoot up in the air and not be accurate. So that's why I like to go about an arm's length out and shoot. So as I'm getting more and more confidence with shooting this thing, as you're going through and learning this, you're going to be able to shoot into more intricate holes and be able to get to even harder to reach spots where crappie are hiding at. But more practice you can get and more of a feeling that you get for the timing of when you're going to release your trigger finger and your jig finger, those are going to be huge for you and will come with a lot of practice and time. You'll get better at it the more you do it. So whether you're fishing in the fall, spring, summer, or winter, on Lake of the Ozarks or anywhere else in the country you got docks, this is a great technique to have under your belt. You can use this as well up underneath the dock walkways, as well as the swim platforms, inside the slips, anywhere that you guys have got brush piles sitting underneath like another tree, or anywhere that's really hard to get an overhead cast into or skip something up underneath. This is going to be a magnificent technique to add to your arsenal to be able to reach those hard to reach crappie and catch those fish that are holding really tight to that shade. We'll catch you guys next time. Remember to explore deeper. There's more out there, and we'll see you soon.